Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and in today's episode we are back in the PMDG 737 and we are going to be taking it from Tucson over to Las Vegas. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. All right, everybody. So just to give you guys the heads up, we are going to be also using my Overkill's PMDG 737 tutorial guide to complete this flight, even though it's from a different departure and different destination. Just sort of demonstrating that you can use the guide to pretty much get anywhere you need to go. So if you guys are interested in either supporting the channel or acquiring any of my tutorial guides, as you saw in the beginning of the video, consider joining me on Patreon. Tier 2 subscribers and above have access to all of my guides. All right, enough of the sales pitch. Let's get going. So first things first, we are stepping into the cockpit. We're going to make sure landing gear handles down. I'm going to go ahead and set the parking brake now. And let's walk through the pre-start sequence here. So I'm going to step up to the overhead panel. We're going to make sure the battery switch comes to the on position. Emergency exit lights are in the armed position. Electronic hydraulic pumps are disabled. Ground power is available, so we're going to go ahead and switch that on. Brings the aircraft to life. Always one of my favorite parts. And there's just something about flipping that switch and it goes choom. Anyway, I digress. We have the left and right wipers are in the park position. Step down a little further here. Oh, too far. Too far again. There we go. Again, landing gear handle down. All three green lights are indicating the gear is down as well. Flaps are showing retracted. Flap handle is agreeing. And if for any reason that you need to, if for any reason you had the forward landing gear panels were unavailable or lights were unavailable, gosh, they changed my camera views and it pisses me off. You have these three up here that are also available, indicating the landing gear is down and secure. All right, so now we'll go ahead and proceed with the fire test systems. I have to remember how they have this. They have this all different now. All of my controls, I had everything customized for the last year and a half as far as how I move the cameras around. And then in a little update a couple weeks ago, it changed all those back to the defaults. Now it's got me all screwed up still. All right, so we're going to do the in-op and fault test. Make sure the warning lights come on. Switch over to the right-hand side. Make sure the fire alarm bells sound. Okay. Then we're going to step on over, make sure the extinguisher bottle discharge lights are indicating. Come on, go back to the other side. Come on. Come on. Thank you. Check the other side. Good to go. And we'll test the cargo fire heat warning. Perfect. Stepping back to the rear panel here, you want to make sure your manual gear release levers are all pushed in and secured and the hatch is closed. And while you're here, take a look up top, make sure the emergency escape rope hatch is also secure. Make sure all your first officer circuit breakers are pushed in, and then move to the pilot side. Those aren't modeled, so we don't actually have to walk through those just yet. And then now, let's come back to the rear overhead panel. Flight recorder, we're going to open up the guard switch, set it over to test. Off light should extinguish. Back to normal, close the guard, and now let's perform the mock airspeed warning. Here's number 1. Moving to number 2. Stall warning. There has to be a catch to these two. There's something that I'm missing with these, because sometimes they'll go off and sometimes they don't. You should hear it rattle and shake and all that good jazz. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But while we're here, we'll step on over to the IRS and set them both to nav. Now, how long it takes for the alignment process to complete will be based on your configuration down in the MCDU. That's in the PMDG options. Step down to the flight deck here and do a lights test. Flip that switch to the up position and make sure anything that has a light bulb illuminates. Looks great. All right, we'll go ahead and clear that there. And our final step here in this process is to do an oxygen check. Find the white arrow here, give it a push. You can also hear the oxygen pass, and this bubble Doppler thing here should open up, indicating oxygen's passing through it. So we're good. All right. So that's the fun stuff there, right? Now it's time to start fueling and setting up the aircraft. Now, for someone who's a casual flyer and just wants to enjoy the entire experience, I do recommend that you, go through the process of actually loading it and listening to the passengers load in behind you. However, given that this is a video like this, and to try to save you guys some boring time, we're going to just load the aircraft instantly. So to instantly load it, we're going to come here to fuel and payload, and that's where we're going to be putting in our documentation information. So the first thing we're going to be looking for is block fuel. We'll come back to the enter IRS position. We'll just clear that for now. So first we're going to go to fuel, and right here, total pounds is what we're looking for. Block fuel today on our SimBrief flight plan is 14820 pounds, 14,000 pounds, almost 15,000. And then we're going to go back one, go to payload, and set our passenger and cargo count. Pax count today on SimBrief is 149 passengers. We currently have, actually that's more than what this aircraft can hold according to this, with our particular model. So we're just going to call it a full aircraft. So all I'm going to do is change economy to 120. So we actually have a total of 128 souls on board plus crew. And let's see here, payload, we're looking for 34.3 thousand pounds. That's going to be total weight with passengers. So excuse me, cargo, we have 8.2, which means we're going to break that up into 4.1 for forward and aft. So 4.1 thousand pounds of cargo. Oh, that's right, you have to type 4100. 4100. Drop that in there. And 4100. And we'll put that in there for 8,200 pounds. Perfect. Keeps the aircraft balanced. Good to go. Now we are ready to proceed with programming the rest of the FMC. So let's begin. Let's go to the initial reference page here. Oh, sorry. Menu, then FMC. Now we can continue onward. Nav data, add a date. Yeah, it is. I need to update that. You can do that using the Navigraph Data Manager. It will actually pick up the PMDG as its own database source. Easiest way to do that, although you do need a Navigraph subscription for that. But this air rack cycle will still work with our current flight plan for today, so we're fine. But we have the model 737-800. We have our current engine rating at 24,000 pounds of thrust. They are not derated at all. The current air rack cycle, as well as the dates that is active from May 19th to June 16th of 2022, and the current operating, OS version of the FMC. So let's go ahead and move over to position initialization. Now from here, you have a couple of different ways that you can do this. The quote unquote correct ways, we're going to step over to the next page. We'll find the GPS left. We'll copy that down and we'll go to previous page and drop that up here in the box. But usually if you want to be really lazy, you can usually just grab this one here and copy it down. As you can see here, they are today identical. Sometimes there might be a decimal difference, but if you want, you can just click here, click it down here and you're done. Okay, but we'll do it by the book. Now let's move over to the next page, which is going to be a route page. And now we need to enter in our origin, Kilo Tango Uniform Sierra for Tucson, Arizona. And we're heading to Kilo Lima Alpha Sierra for Viva, Las Vegas. And we're flying on Southwest Airlines 2710 fictional aircraft. At least I think it is. And that is it, what we need today. Company route, this is if you have a stored flight plan for this particular destination. We do not. And if you want to enter in your departure runway, you can. We're not going to worry about that today. We'll be setting that up later on. And flight request, if you want to do this through SimBrief, I actually have more fun entering it in manually whenever I can, so we're just going to continue on over to the next page. Now you can see the VIAs. This is going to have all of our airway information and SID and star information, and the 2 is going to be all of your waypoint information. Now the first thing we're going to do is set up our departures, and in order to do that, we're just going to come down here to departures and arrival. The PMDG FMC, or I should say the Boeing FMCs. Actually, in many ways, I find it to be a bit more intuitive and easier to use than, for example, the Airbus MCDU. It really is pretty black and white, although the MCDU isn't bad either, but I do find this one to be a little bit easier. So departures for Tucson, that's what we want, right? We are leaving Tucson, and let's go back to SimBrief and find out what our route today is. Our route is going to be the Burrow 4 SID, Standard Instrument Departure. We're going to be transitioning at B-Ball and departing from runway 11 left. So the easiest way to read them sort of backwards. We're departing from runway 11 left using the Burrow 4, transitioning off the Burrow 4 onto our route at B-Ball. And so from here, we're just going to go over to the route page, and there it is once again. And from here, we are going direct to PXR. So we're going to go Papa X-Ray Romeo, and all we're going to do is drop it right over here, and it'll automatically populate with direct. Makes it real easy. Direct's always easy. And then from there, we are jumping on to the J11 airway, and from that airway we are going to Drake, I believe is what this is, DRK, and from Drake we are going to be going direct to ELDA, Echo Lima Lima Delta Alpha, and we're going to drop that right in there like so, and we are now done with the route and we're ready to enter in our arrivals. Let's go back to departures and arrival. Now you can select your departure airport as your arrival source as well, so be careful. We want to make sure we select Las Vegas arrival, and let's see what we got coming down today. We are looking for the 08 right and Rockstar. So let's scroll on down. Where are you? There is Rockstar 2 for 08 right. That's 08 Bravo. Let's see what we got. Looks like they're all Rockstar 2 for 08. So let's do that. 08 Bravo. Let's find our transition. We are using the ELDA transition. And ideally, I want the ILS for 08 right. I don't think we're getting an ILS. Looks like we're going to be doing RNAV today. All right, fine. I'll just sit here and pout. RNAV it is. So RNAV for 08 right, not a big deal at all. And now at this point, we'll go back to the route page, go back to the next page, make sure we don't have any... All right, perfect. So the other thing you can do if you choose is we can go to the legs page here. We're going to just verify our route real quick. And we're going to move this, the display controller, over to plan. And then from here, we can go through the step button and step through each location in our travel. And at this point, it would be a good time, like I said, to verify with Navigraph charts or whatever charts you use to make sure your altitude restrictions are in there and where they're supposed to be. Make sure you don't have any discontinuities. A discontinuity would show up, for example, this magenta line would have a break in it. Gap, there would be a gap in it. That'd be a discontinuity. Or any waypoints that are going way out of the way that just don't make sense. Like, let's see what we got going on here. This is sort of interesting. Oh, no. Okay, that's perfect. So there's the landing. And then if necessary, here's the missed approach. Although there was... couldn't go back through it, actually. There was something that caught my attention. And it was right before the approach. Alright, so Jaeger, we're expecting vectors and then back to Jaeger. So what we can do here, I think, is I'm going to actually try to delete this location. Nope, won't let me. Let's see if I can delete the vector. Alright, let me try to delete the... There we go. And then I think I can clear the vector. So I'm going to execute that, and so there's a discontinuity. I'm going to try to delete the vector. Still won't let me. Come on, man. All right, so it's going to make me leave that there. I know previously in the Airbus, I was able to clear the vectors out, but that's fine. So all we're going to do here in this case is put Jaeger back in. And we'll just know that when we get there to activate the approach. Not a big deal. So from here we can do that. Here we should be able to delete the discontinuity. Why are you giving me a discontinuity? That actually makes perfect sense. Oh, you know what? I think we can do that. There we go. That's what I wanted. No, hit execute. Okay. Put it back together. Alright. So we have to leave the vector there, it looks like. At least to keep things easy. I'm sure there's a way around that. I just don't know what it is yet. Okay. So that's going to wrap up the flight plan configuration. Oh, we need to come back up here. Move this back to the map. And now let's set up the rest of the performance information. So from this point, we're going to go back to initial reference, and it takes us to the N1 limit page, or the performance initialization page, excuse me. So for 0 fuel weight, as long as the aircraft is already fueled, or loaded, excuse me, with your cargo, you can drop that in. Our planned fuel is already in. Reserves, however, you're going to want from SimBrief, if you're using that, your final reserves plus the alternate. So in our case, it's going to be 6.9 today. Drop that in there. Cost index today is going to be 17. Okay, and then our cruise altitude today is going to be 34,000 feet. Come on. Our cruising altitude winds is going to be 245 at 18. Pretty calm winds for up there. Alright, transition altitude is 18,000 feet. We can go ahead and execute here. Let's move over to the N1 limit. The N1 limit, we're just going to leave it at the default at max D rate. So we're going to take off at Toga with the max performance of the engines. And we're going to go take off. Flaps 5 today. We're almost going to always be using flaps 5 in the 737 unless you're on really wet conditions or very, very short runway and very heavy. And for our center of gravity, just give it a click. As long as you are fully fueled and fully loaded, you can go ahead and just tap that, drop it in there. Our trim's going to be 5.14 today, so 5 degrees of trim is what we're going to be looking for. Got our V2 speed of 135 knots. So we're going to come up to the FCP, drop 135 knots here. I do 145. I always do V2 plus 10. And all that does is gives you just a slightly better takeoff performance. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's a company policy thing. It can vary from company to company. Some companies use it, some don't use it at all. All right, and then we need our trim. So for that, I'm going to step down here, go left alt, push us forward, come to the right, and we're just going to move the trim wheel down. And there's that 5-degree line. So the trim is set. Let's come back to here, and everything else should be go. We've got our V2, we've got our takeoff weight, our gross weight. Although that's interesting, gross weight and takeoff weight is going to be... Oh, that makes perfect sense. Never mind, disregard that. And let's see here, runway's already assigned. We are good to go, folks. So let's continue with the rest of the aircraft startup, and we'll get pushed back and at it. Alright, so returning to the upstairs location here, we want to do our yaw damper. Want to make sure your navigation displays are all set to normal. Your display sources are set to auto and control panel set to normal. Crossfeed, you're going to want to go ahead and flip that knob to the right. You should get a very high blue, then it goes dim, back to off, high blue, and then extinguished. Fuel pumps can come on. Center tanks aren't fueled today, so we don't need them on. For the power display here, or the meter, we're going to go ahead and set that to the APU as we're getting ready to flip the APU on. So we're going to move on down. We want to make sure our galley power is set to on. You want to make sure your standby power is set to the auto position and guarded, and your disconnects are guarded. Make sure once again that your wiper switches are in the park position. Moving up to your lights, you would set those at this time. You'd probably already set your panel lights and circuit breakers at this point, but you can double check them for flight if you know you're going into night conditions. You might want to turn those on. Equipment cooling, you want to make sure in the norm position. At this point, no smoking lights, or in this case, what does that say? Chime only. Ah, gotcha. And the fasten seatbelts can go to the on position. Only turn your fasten seatbelt signs on if your aircraft is done fueling. Never turn your seatbelt signs on when the aircraft is still fueling. That way, in the event of an emergency while fueling, you can evacuate the aircraft quickly. Hit the attend light, let the cabin know that we're getting ready to get on out of here. Always the fun button to push because you know it's getting close. Turn our, oh, what are you doing? Turn our window heat on. Probes, we'll leave those off until we're ready for taxi. And let's see here, moving on down, if you are in extreme icing conditions, you can turn your anti-ice on now. Electronic hydraulic pumps can now come on. Make sure your door panels are all extinguished, indicating all the exterior doors are sealed and closed, or closed and sealed, I should say. Moving up to your air conditioning system, you would set that as desired at this point. And the recirculatory system, you want to make sure your fans are in the auto position. Packs can go to the auto position. Isolation valve can remain open for the time being. APU bleed, you can either turn that on now or right before engine start. Just don't forget. We're going to go ahead and flip it on now. Pressurization, we're going to set our cruising altitude, 34,000 feet. And we need to set our landing altitude, and for that I'm going to move over to Navigraph charts for just a minute and pull up Las Vegas. KLAS. I know you guys can't see anything, trust me, I promise I'm using it. Navigraph charts is the way to go. Pulling up the taxi information, looking for the airport information, which gives you a diagram of the airport. Or you can go to your approach plate, it's up to you, the information will be contained on both. So we are expecting 08 right, which has a landing elevation of 2,100 feet. It's actually 2,157, so we're going to set 2,200 feet. Always put the pressurization above, not below. So there's 2,200 feet. Looking absolutely fantastic there. Alright, so pressurization is set, the air conditioning system is set, our landings are set. Let's see here, the little elves are in the background. Let's see here, the pressurization mode also needs to be in the auto position. We can now at this point, to make sure that your position lights are set to steady, anti-collision light can now come on, letting everyone know that we're getting ready to start her up. We're going to come over to the APU, flip that to the down position and hit start. At which point the exhaust temperature for the APU should start rotating. You're also going to see a low oil pressure light indicating that the APU is running. Stand by for that. There's our light. It's going to peak up between 600 and 800 degrees, and at which point it will fall back down to about 400. Once it reaches that point, the APU will be available for use, and we can disconnect our ground power. While that is going on, we're going to step on down to the FCP and continue setting it up. Flight directors, always make sure the captain's flight director comes on first. You can see that master light, or the MA, indicating that this is the master flight director, and then turn our first officers on. We can set our initial clearance altitude. Today it's going to be 14,000 feet is what we're looking for today. And we can set our departure runway heading. Let's go ahead and go back and look at what that is. And of course, like a genius, I closed Navigraph. Luckily, I fly out of Tucson constantly, so it is very easy for me to pull up. And let's pull up our charts, and we're going to look for our... Hello, come on. I'm looking for my taxi information, again, airport information, finding runway 11 left, and our runway heading is 123 degrees. If you're using a VOR, you can set those up in the course knobs as well, if that's something that you'd like to set up ahead of time. If you have, for example, a VOR as your first or second waypoint, you can set that course line up for the VOR, and then maybe the one after that, just in case you need to switch over into VOR navigation for any reason. It's good to have ready and on the roll. In our case, we're just putting in the course heading of the runway, just so everything's lined up with our takeoff. Come on, and I am going the wrong way. There we go. Looking for, again, 123 degrees. I went too far. There it is. And I think other than that, we're all set to go. So, flight directors are on. Heading is set. Initial speed is set. Altitude is set. Course knobs are set. Flight displays are set. Looking absolutely fabulous. Alright. And now we'll move on over and set our barometric pressure. Looks like we're set for 29 or 9 or 3 today. We'll also come back down and set our transponder at this time. Flip that down to the standby position and set a transponder code that makes you happy, unless you were actually given one by ATC. I never do, so that looks good to me. And we're going to just leave that in the standby position for the moment until we are ready for taxi, or pushback in our case. We're also going to, there we go. We're also going to step forward, go to the auto brake, and set that to RTO for rejected takeoff. This is in the event we need to abort the takeoff. Come down to the MFD display, hit the system page. Here's where you would check all of your flight controls and make sure everything is responding accordingly. Everything looks grand. Parking brake is already set. We're also going to give our engine button a quick tap. We want to clear... Oh, I don't want to clear that screen yet. What are you doing? There we go. System is what I wanted. You also want to check your hydraulic pressure on the system page. Let me get that out of my way. Sorry, I know I'm bouncing around a little bit here, guys. I'm trying not to waste too much of your time here and get things rolling. Next thing that we're going to do really fast before we request a pushback is we're going to push our throttles forward and make sure that the takeoff alarm does in fact sound. That is very crucial. Okay. So let's see if we are missing anything. I don't believe we are. I think it is about time. Oh, one last panel to check here. Make sure we're good to go. Make sure your engine start switches are in the cutoff position. Once again, parking brake is set. Stabilizer trim is both set to the norm position and guarded underneath. And we need to step on back one more time. And make sure your rudder trim is zeroed out, as well as your aileron trim, which aileron trim you are going to find on top of the yoke right here. If we had any trim left or right, you would be indicating here on the yoke itself. So it makes that part very easy to identify. Alright, and at this point the aircraft is ready to rock and roll. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to step upstairs and we are going to switch to the APU Gen. So you can see the Gen bus is illuminated, indicating that the APU is available. So at this point we're going to flip 1, flip 2. That turns the ground power off, at which point we can disconnect the ground power. And we have doors open all of a sudden. Go ahead and verify that. Interesting. It's saying our left and right wing doors are open. Well, we'll check that in the FMC. Let's go ahead and step on downstairs because we got to get the ground crew out of here anyway. So let's go to menu. We're going to go to FS actions. We're going to ground power. Or ground crew, find ground power and hit release, as well as releasing. Oh, sorry, looks like it's already going. And I'm going to double check those doors. It is definitely saying that they're open. I wonder why. I certainly didn't open them. But in that case, let's go into doors. There we go. It's wanting me to open the doors, so they can't be open. And yet it says they are. Well, let's see what happens when we get the engine started. If that's still a concern, we'll address it then. Or you know what? Here, let's just do this. Overwing, open. Alright, now it's open. Close. Where's my overwing? There we go. I'll have to monitor that. Hopefully that's not a bug that we just ran into. Okay, so let's go ahead and get set up for the pushback. At this point, I'm going to use Pushback Express. Or Pushback Express. Toolbar Pushback. So we are going to go to pre-plan pushback. Yes, I know how this works. Come on. And today we are departing from 1-1 left, so we're going to push it all the way back over here. Press enter. Pushback is ready. Request pushback. They're not talking to us anymore. They used to. Oh, you know what? I think I took the ground group voices off. Alrighty. It's really weird about those doors. That's really got my attention. Alright, for engine start, we're going to make sure that we turn the packs off. That is important. Parking brakes released. Oh, you know what? I released the parking brake. That's what they were waiting for. When I did the pedals check, I think yep, I did. Alright, now we'll release the parking brake. We should start the pushback, and then we can start the engine start. Alright, moving backwards. Right engine first. We're going to switch that over. The engine start switch to ground. And let's return this to the engine page. Looking for 25%. There's 25. Let her rip. And again, if your engines don't start at this point, check your APU bleed. Alright, right engine's basically at idle. Rinse and repeat. The start switch will automatically return to the off position once it's set. And again, looking for 25%. Set the parking brake. Start the engine. Definitely a little bug going on here, huh? Oh, you know what? I almost wonder. I wonder if FS Realistic is interfering with it. Alright, we're done. They're out of there. Yeah. FS Realistic and PMDG 737 doesn't seem to be going real well for me today. So I think I'm just going to leave it off for today's flight. Alright, now at this point we are going to go ahead and move upstairs. We want the gen lights or generators 1 and 2 on. This switches the power off from the APU. APU can be turned off. APU bleed can go off. Isolation valve goes to auto. Packs return to the on position. Pitos and probe heats can now turn on as well. I really don't like that those two doors are still showing open. I don't know what's going on with that. I hope that doesn't affect us when we try to do our climb. But we're going to see. I think it's just a bug, but we'll see. Alright, and right and left engines start switches go to the continuous position. Taxi light can come on. Runway turn off lights if required. Alright, moving back here. Transponder can now go to altitude reporting off. Make sure your transponder and alternate source or alt source is set to 1. TCAS remains off for the moment. Let's step back down. MCDU. Oh, it's the cargo doors. But that doesn't that say? It says the right and left over wing doors. It's the cargo doors that they're saying are open, isn't it? No, actually it's not. No, never mind. It's telling me if I want to open them. I don't know what's going on with those doors, guys. Really hope that doesn't mess up our flight. I really hope that doesn't mess up our flight. Maybe just an issue with the livery. I don't know. Guess we're going to find out here, because at this point we're stuck in it. So let's just do this. Alright, so at this point we have our taxi light set. We move to the legs page here. Takeoff numbers are set. Check, check, check. Good, good. Flight directors. FCP is set. Flaps. Let's move those to flaps 5. One, 2, and 5. And let's just monitor and make sure we get 5. Flaps 5 indicating. Verify barometric pressure. Barometric pressure still 299.3. Let's get out of here. Parking brake has been released. Power up above 50. Make sure you don't get the alarm. No takeoff configuration alert. We're good to go. Alright, let the games begin. So, landing lights now at this point come on. Position strobe. Position light goes to strobe and steady. We're going to step on downstairs here. Make sure our transponder goes to TARA. Traffic awareness resolution of, or traffic avoidance resolution awareness. And I think everything else is good to go. I think that's all we needed. Yep. Alright, we can arm the auto throttle. We can arm LNAV as we take the runway. Come on, brakes, let go. Start the chronometer. Set engines to approximately 50%. Verify they're stable. Toga. Airspeed alive. Cross-checked. Rotate.
Positive rate of climb.
Gear up. Retracting flaps. Looking for flaps 2. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. The keybind. Alright, something else got messed up for me here. Hang on a second, guys. Damn it. Alright, you really messed me up. LNAV, VNAV. We're gonna engage the autopilot, let it take over. Man, all my controls are messed up, man. This is frustrating. We really messed up a lot of my stuff here. Alright, so we're approaching flaps 1. Alright, so we're on track there. That's good. Auto brakes can get turned off. Engine start switches can go to the off position. Flaps up. Gear off. We're on our way. Good thing we were on runway heading for a while, huh? That was kind of annoying. And come upstairs, make sure the aircraft is pressurizing. Awesome. No complaints. Everything's looking good now. A goofy little hiccup there with the flight controls. So I normally use Control F, Shift F for my flaps, is what happened there. And apparently that keybind got removed. And so when I hit it, it actually turned the flight directors off. So, which reset the LNAV, etc., etc. Like, thanks, guys. The last update to the controls really annoyed me, like I gotta say. Alright, so we're 500 feet away from target. We're gonna go all the way up to now. We're gonna take it all the way up to cruise. Oh, whoa, what am I doing? There we go. Although she's sitting tight, so we're going to come right over here. Go to altitude intervention, get her climbing again. Alright, a little late on the recording here, but 18,000 and above. Press our standard button to set the barometric pressure at 29902. Go ahead and continue onward with the rest of our configuration here. So we're going to go to the descent page. You can see we're 119 miles away from our top of descent. Now, this seems to be right here. This is our speed restriction that's supposed to be 250 knots below 10,000 feet. There seems to be a lot of debate where people are saying that, you know, only in Europe it's at 250 below 10,000. I cannot find anywhere in United States documentation that states it is 240. Everything that I'm finding says 250. So if someone can direct me to what the actual number is, because everything on Google, I mean, that's what I have access to. Everything says 250 below 10,000. So well, that's what we're going to throw up there. Throw up there. Sorry. Drop that in there, hit execute, then we're going to move over to the forecast page. From the forecast page, what we're going to do here is we're going to set our temperature deviations, as well as, actually we're not going to worry about the temperature deviation, I'm not going to worry about that, but what we are going to do is set our wind directions at certain altitude targets. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to set 28,000 feet, so I'm going to do flight level 280, drop that in there, and I'm going to set the wind speed and direction. Wind speed and direction according to FlightSim.2 is 182 at 7 knots. Very calm winds today, dude. Holy crap. Probably didn't need 3 of those, but that's alright. 182 at 7 knots, and then we're going to do 20,000 feet, so we're going to do flight level 200. Drop that in there. And winds at flight level 200 are going to be 111 at 2. 111 for 2 knots. Just quiet skies today. It's so crazy. And the last one we're going to do is 10,000 feet. So we're going to do flight level 100. And the purpose of this is it just provides a slightly better descent profile. And let's see here. That's going to be 187 at 7 knots again. 187 at 7. And drop those in there. Boom. Got that nice and set. Makes it real sweet. Alright. And we're going to hit execute. Locks that in there. Now, you could put in the outside temperature deviation as well. I've gone through that in previous videos today. I'm not going to worry about it. We're just going to move on. And we're going to go to the fix page next. And we are going to type in our runway. Where are you? RW08, right? And we're going to add some rings around it. /5 for 5 miles. /10 is what I'm going to use. You could do /15, /20 here. What this does is it puts green rings around the runway, giving you indicators. So this is going to be 5 miles out, and this is going to be 10 miles out. Gives you just a visual reference on your nav display of where you're at. And we'll be using those later on when we come into the approach, and you guys will see those, and we'll talk about it again. And other than that, folks, I think we're just about ready for our descent. We're still way ahead of schedule here, but let me make sure I haven't missed anything. Like I said, I could put the outside air temperature or the landing elevation. Oh, nope. We need to go to our initial reference. And we are going to set flaps 30. If you just tap that twice, it'll automatically program it and lock that in. So we're going to be looking for a final landing of flaps 30 at 133 knots. And our gross weight. Now, we can do a couple of different things for the gross weight page. what we actually need is to do our, let's see, if we go to descent, what am I looking for? Is it the descent page? No, it's not the descent page. Hang on a second. There we go. It's our legs page. Or it's the progress page. I could, get my head out of my butt and pay attention to what I'm doing. So, here we go again. So, fuel quantity at Las Vegas, right here, we're expected to be at 9. Currently, we're at 11. And we can verify that right here, 5.4, 5.4, so it's actually 10.8, so it's rounding it up. We're expected to be about 9.0, so if you wanted to get your gross weight for the initial reference right on money, we could change this to say 120.x, but we're not going to worry about that. This is close enough for what we're looking for. But the information on how to do it the long way is in the PDF guide if you guys are interested. The next thing we need to do is set up our ILS frequencies. So we're going to go to Las Vegas on Navigraph and make sure those are locked in. Let's go to the books, approach, and we're looking for the RNAV, RNAV frequency, not ILS, but you guys got what I was getting at. 116.9. So let's step on back. 116.9, easy peasy on that one, isn't it? And just in case, throw it in here as well. Set to the active there. And our final runway heading for today is going to be 079 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and throw that up there now. Nice thing about simulation, we don't have to worry about a whole lot of deviation. 079 and 07. Alright, approach speed, we're way too soon to worry about that. Alright, and we need to set our initial descent altitude. So what I'm going to be looking for is the initial fix, which is that Jaeger waypoint. So I'm going to set our altitude target down to 8,000 feet. Again, this is the initial fix waypoint for the approach. Goodness gracious, that's taking forever. There we go. And there we go. There's 8,000. And so now when we reach, when the aircraft reaches the top of descent, it will automatically begin descending without any intervention from us. However, if you want the aircraft to descend now, you can go to the descent page, click the descend now button, and the descent would begin immediately. In our case, we're going to let the aircraft do what it does best. It knows better than we do. That's just the way the world works. So let's go ahead and let it rock and roll. So I'll see you guys in just a little bit. I'll probably see you guys as we get close to the initial fix. Alright, we just passed through 18,000 feet, so we have reset our altimeter to the current altimeter pressure, 2972. We've now set our barometric minimums for 2544. Alright, so we're now passing through 12,000 feet. We've set auto brakes to 3 for our landing. We've gone upstairs, and I went ahead to flip the landing lights on a little early, just to save a bit of time. So landing lights are on. Engine start switches are back into the continuous position. Seatbelt signs have returned to the auto position, or on position, excuse me. Making sure everyone stays in their seats. There's those rings that we were talking about. There's the 10-mile ring right there. We have our core settings for the localizer. Just doing some last minute checks, making sure that we're ready to begin the approach. We're actually looking really good here. A few minutes away from the initial fix, so I'll see you guys in just a couple minutes. Alright, now we're going to start slowing the aircraft down pretty dramatically here, so let's pull it back to our reference speed. Which is 133 knots. Go to flaps 1. And actually go all the way down to flaps 5. Now inside 8 miles, gears coming down. Not sure why it banked us so hard like that. Going for reference flaps. Setting our escape altitude for the missed approach. My plane.
1,000.
Gosh, she's fighting me.
500. Approaching minimums. Minimums.
Continuing.
300. 200.
Sync rate. Sync rate. Sync rate.
40. 30. 20. 10.
Oops. Thought I triggered my reversers. I didn't. All right. Whew. All right, let's exit the runway here. Alright guys, so I'm not sure what happened there, but I was getting huge lag spikes once I landed and was trying to taxi out. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was certainly a fun flight, and it just got a little goofy there at the end. I'm not quite sure what happened there. But as always, folks, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out. And as always, stay safe and healthy. I'll see you in the next one.